Hi everyone, Gerry Dulac along with Ray Fittipaldo at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati, where the Steelers lost a wild and woolly one 33-31 to the Cincinnati Bengals. Your Steeler Report brought to you by Savinas, Kane and Gallucci Mesothelioma and Asbestos Lawyers with 85 years of experience. Go to sdklaw.com for more information. Ray, I'll tell you what, if they were worried about a battle of 40-something quarterbacks, what a show Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers put on, throwing for nearly 600 yards, 7 touchdowns, but you have to give all the credit to Joe Flacco. Man, he toyed with that Steeler defense. The Bengals scored on 7 of their final 8 possessions after the Steelers took that 10-0 lead, and they could do nothing to stop Joe Flacco and Ja'Marr Chase.
Yeah, listen, it didn't matter if they were in zone coverage, man coverage. I asked Mike Tomlin after the game if he thought about doubling more. He said on the one occasion they did double both Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. Joe Flacco threw it about 40 yards down the field to Iosivas for a big play at the end of the half there. So nothing the Steelers did was working. Joe Flacco had all the answers on Thursday.
And his final act, Ray, came on that final drive. He was 3 of 3 for 61 yards. He starts the final drive like he did the entire game. He targeted Ja'Marr Chase 23 times. That's a career high for Ja'Marr Chase. But he starts off that final drive with a 15 and 18-yard pass, and then he gets T. Higgins behind Jalen Ramsey for a 28-yarder that set up that winning field goal. You know, the Steelers brought in Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay during the offseason to pair with Joey Porter, and the idea was they had the Bengals in mind. Let's match up with these Bengal receivers, and Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins killed them again.
Yeah, before we get to that, let's say how smart of a play that was by T. Higgins to slide down there on the 5-yard line. I don't think a lot of receivers make that play. But yes, Gerry, to your point, Mike Tomlin was very confident in the summer and even going up to this game that they were going to have answers for Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. Obviously they didn't. They got to go back to the drawing board. They're going to get these guys again in Pittsburgh in a few weeks, and they better have a better plan, and they're going to have a repeat performance.
Rain, it wasn't just Joe Flacco. You know, the Bengals came into the game with the worst rushing offense in the league. And here they rushed for 142 yards. That's more yards than the Steeler defense had allowed in the previous 2 games combined.
Yeah.
Chase Brown ran through. He had a 28-yard run, a 37-yard run, and this was a team that came in with the fewest yards per game, I think 56 yards per game.
Yeah.
Heck, they had 97 yards at halftime, and that Steeler defense that we thought had finally learned how to stop the run, man, just got gouged again. And so much of that, though, Ray, is because they're playing that sub-package defense, worried about those pass receivers, and then they're playing with 2 down linemen, and they just got gouged again.
Yeah, you know, it's almost like a lot of people thought they maybe turned the corner and they finally had the defense untracked. And listen, it's a long season. They're probably going to end up being a pretty good defense by season's end. But Gerry, this is the 3rd time in 6 games they've given up 30 or more points in a game. The Seahawks had 31. The Jets had 32, and the only reason they won that Jets game is because of Chris Boswell at the end.
Yeah, and so that loss by the Steelers, Ray, ends their 3-game losing streak. You know, Aaron Rodgers said after the game, he says, you know, we had a chance to put some space between us. He says, but hey, we're 4-2, still in first place, and they have back-to-back home games. He said he's not going to ride the roller coaster. It is way too early. You know, in the end, is that loss going to kill the Steelers? We'll see, but they are still 4-2. But the Bengals had lost 4 in a row, and now here comes Joe Flacco, and they believe probably help them stay in this race.
Yeah, I mean, what this does is it breathes a little bit of life into the Bengals. You know, a lot of people are still worried about the Ravens. The Ravens are now 3 games behind the Steelers. The Bengals are only 2 games behind the Steelers, and they have the tiebreaker, obviously, with the win tonight. So, like we said, long season ago, Gerry, the Steelers will get another crack at the Bengals here. Yeah, certainly disappointing that they weren't able to take a stranglehold of the AFC North tonight.
Ray, I know Aaron Rodgers threw a couple interceptions in the first half. That second one was not his fault. It was DK Metcalf couldn't hold on to the ball, and they made a nice pick along the sideline. But he comes back, he throws 4 touchdown passes. Second time this year he's done that. He did it in the season opener against New York. All 4 of his touchdowns were to tight ends, and 2 of them were to Pat Freiermuth, who, remember him? He's finally back involved in his offense. He hadn't caught 2 touchdowns in a game since his rookie season, week 8. but he was back involved. And then that 68-yarder that Aaron Rodgers steps away from pressure, finds Freiermuth in the middle of the field. He catches it to 35, completes a 68-yard catch and run touchdown, puts the Steelers ahead. This whiteout crowd was quieted when that happened. There's only 2.5 minutes remaining. It looked like the Steelers were going to pull this out with Aaron Rodgers, and then the defense couldn't stop Joe Flacco again.
What did I say? I said they scored too early.
That's right. Ray said that.
Listen, we got a little bit of insight into how Aaron Rodgers approaches these games. On that first touchdown pass to Pat Freiermuth, late in the first half or at halftime, he told Freiermuth, because he looked at a Polaroid at the half, he said he noticed something in that Bengals defense. They were crowding DK Metcalf, and he knew Pat Freiermuth was going to be open on that play. They dialed the play up, and they scored a touchdown on a 3rd and 18. So if they won this game, Gerry, that would have been a huge play in this football game. He also talked about the professionalism of Pat Freiermuth, how he stayed in there, didn't complain, and finally he got more balls his way. You knew it was eventually going to happen, and Pat Freiermuth certainly played well tonight.
And the other thing we saw tonight, Ray, was the running game continuing to get better. Jaylen Warren, a big game, 127 yards, 2 yards shy of his career high. Man, he had a 23-yard run, a couple, 2 or 3 10-yard runs. Man, he was running through that Bengal defense, and he looked very, very good. And people wonder if they were wondering if Jaylen Warren could be a number one bell cow running back. He certainly showed it tonight.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers said they didn't regret attacking the Bengals at the end of the first half. But if you just go back and analyze that game a little bit, if they have the lead, if you go to your jumbo package and you run the ball there, you take some time off the clock, maybe you get a field goal before halftime, and maybe you're up 13-7 instead of being behind like they were. So, we could sit here and second guess them. Rodgers said they were playing a lot of single high safety. That's why they went after some big plays. But if they had to do that over again, I think they might want to run the ball a little bit more.
Well, the other thing too, Ray, Arthur Smith, he has an aggressive mindset. And if he wants to keep attacking, and so if he doesn't, then people will say he's too conservative and too dull. I have no problem with the way they played. They were up, and they wanted to keep attacking, and that's just the way it goes. Steelers now, they come back, they go back home. Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers' former team, and then the Indy Colts, who are 5-1, back-to-back, 2 big games for the Steelers at Acrisure Stadium. Steelers, of course, off for the weekend. They'll be back at it next week. For Ray Fittipaldo, I'm Gerry Dulac. You're watching Post-Gazette.com.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.